Hello,
Hi,
Bhavish.
Yashraj.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
Thank you for joining. And
Thanks a lot for
how
inviting me, Yashraj.
pleasure having you here. And so we were talking for a while about doing this AMA Ask Me Anything session around UI UX. So why
Right.
don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone who is watching right now?
All
They
right.
would love to know
So,
what you have
hi
been up to.
everyone. I am Bhavishya Garg, and I'm the head of user experience department at MX Player. And I have been a founding member of India's largest cryptocurrency exchange, CoinDCX, as well. Before parting ways just last year, and before that, I have been an author of the UX Notebook via the Niche Mind. I'm also the founder of the agency Let's Go Business. So that's my elongated introduction, which basically means that I'm a designer and I love to create products and solve complex problems.
That's amazing. So your journey has been full of different kind of experiences from coding to so how that journey went when you were initially doing coding, especially from your college days, and then we would love to know a little bit about that. How did you end up
Right. So I
being
mean,
niche in this?
it all really started with the good old days that I know you are talking about. You, me, and a lot of people from Indore. We were actually studying in Indore. Yashraj was a major active part of our Indore community for Microsoft, and that is exactly where it all started for me. I mean, initially I didn't even know that people could make so much money. All I knew was that there was a 3.5 lakh package at TCS that most people are getting, and that's probably I'm going to get as well. And I actually met one of the person that we both know, Gaurav Chauhan, and I saw Gaurav Chauhan initially in first year of my college when he was in second year. I saw him take part in all these hackathons, all these cool things that we thought were very cool. He had all those cool stickers on his laptop, and that actually attracted people like us, students like us, towards the evangelism or towards coding. And when we actually got attracted to that world, and that's something to learn from it, that you always have to try something new. And because we went in, we tried that, then we got to know that. Then I got to know that I am probably better at design. So when I was Google Student Ambassador, I was in a summit. I was collaborating with a lot of coders, and that's when I really realized that I am not a coder who can create world-class code. Like, there are people out there who know algorithms and data structures, everything that there is to know about coding. On the other hand, may not be best at it. So I actually looked at and dug deep into what am I really good at. And I realized that what I'm really good at is problem solving. And problem solving at its core is designing, right? And that's when I discovered design. And really, I just went on to every startup that I could find. I used to redesign all of their apps and website, send it to them for free, and then tell them that I want to work for you again for free, and this is the design that I can create. And that used to take them away for a bit. They're like, oh. People don't deliver such things for free, right? So when you do a whole lot of work and deliver it to them as a final result, as a proposal to join you, and that too for free, you get opportunities. And that's how I kind of got started in the design. And yeah, that has been my journey. Just evangelism got me to design, and design got me to places.
That's amazing. So, your latest, currently where you are at MX Player, I am sure you must have learned a lot of lessons on the way. So, especially like there are two types of audience. First, who are absolute beginner, they are yet to figure out their way. Like, what do they like, right? Like, do they want to go into engineering, coding, or do they want to utilize their creative skills and go towards UI UX? So for first, I would like you to ask, what is UI UX for absolute beginner?
So UI UX, if we leave the jargon behind, UI UX is basically you are given a one statement problem. Let's say the problem is uh, feed all of India via an app. Let's say that's the aim of a big basket, like feeding India, right? So it starts with one problem statement, and UI UX is basically the tool that allows you to convert that idea into something tangible. It could be a product, it could be a mock-up, it could be just a laid down business idea. But that process of taking the idea and making it into a product or a polished idea is what design is what UI UX does, and this is what the work of UI UX designers are.
That's a great explanation. By the way, everyone who have just joined, we have Bhavishya Garg from MX Player. He's head of design. In case you have any questions regarding UI UX, how to get started, anything specific around UI UX, feel free to ask in the comments below. So my second question to you, Bhavish, is would you like to shed some light on where exactly the UI designing fits when it comes to let's say product development? So many of the learners might not know that a lot happens even before you start coding. So what are those stages?
So planning for a product doesn't entirely mean that it doesn't just mean that you need to code that product. Creating a product entirely means that you lay down a plan of why someone will use it, who will use it, and in what way they'll use it first, right? And that's the design process, and that's what UI kind of covers. What UI does is that it converts your idea into mock-ups and wireframes, which you can show it to your investors, show it to your stakeholders, and basically get feedback, show it to your customers and get feedback. And this is where UI lies, and it's changing rapidly, I would say. Why is it changing rapidly? Because just 5 years ago, the best UI designers used to create something that's just beautiful, but not something that's most efficient, not something that is tested or backed by data, not something that is backed by research. So that has been a major turn or major difference between the past 5 years and now, is that now when we design UI, we take decisions from a psychological perspective. We take decisions from the perspective of what would make most sense to the business as well as the user at the same time. So it's not just a beautification activity, it's a user experience activity. And that's why UI has changed massively. And for the coders out there to understand UI UX, why is it important? Because whenever you have an idea, you might know how to code that product. But if that product will take you next 3 years of your life and it does not make sense in the overall economy that's going on right now, then the 3 years are going to go to waste. Even if you are as awesome coder as Mark Zuckerberg, right? Your product will fail. So that is why some knowledge of design and design thinking is extremely important, especially for coders who can actually create good stuff, so that they know at the early stage what kind of products are they creating and how to pivot them into right way.
Yeah. We have a question from Kushi. How to get started in UI UX? What would be your suggestions for beginners?
There are many ways to get started at UI UX. The way I recommend the most is there are two ways. So pick a fantasy project if you can't find any actual project, right? Or get an actual project. Both of them you will get no money for if you are a beginner, but will give you the maximum learnings possible. Trust me, you can give 80,000, 90,000 on Imagine XP or any other branded coaching center for UX out there, but you will never get the real corporate knowledge of what goes on in UI UX in corporate, because it's completely different. When we study UX, we study only psychology, research methods, and when we go to clients, they're like, make it in 7 days. Now you got no time for research, no time for anything. You have to wing everything up, right? So this no coaching teaches you. So the best way for you to start UI UX is obviously you could take some introductory courses, the free ones, especially now that the Coursera has made a lot of courses free. Progate, I think, is introducing a lot of tutorials for coding. So all of these tools are available at their disposal. So obviously avail it for, let's say, 2 hours, 3 hours a day. But for maximum portion, you need to practice. Even I think when people are using Progate, even when they are learning via Progate, they need to spend a good chunk of their time practicing what they learn outside of the learning environment. And that's most important. If you want to start, just dive yourself in, redesign Facebook, redesign Instagram, redesign Big Basket, any app out there, right? You can DM the founders, DM the members of the company, and just ask their feedback on how your design is. That's the best way, according to me.
That's a great advice, I would say. We have a question from Om. Does UI UX involve designing pages from scratch, or is it front end web development? I think he's asking how is it different
No,
from
so
front end.
UI UX can't necessarily, even though our posters say so, can't necessarily be put together, right? UI is a completely different activity, which essentially means that when you have the idea of the product, let's say you have the idea of a product that will teach people to code, but to convert it into Progate, you need to create those wireframes of how it will actually look like. But the user experience is why that page looks like that, why this page comes after this page, why this page is structured in a certain way. The whole thing of where users are coming from, where they are going, the entire experience is user experience, and what you see is UI. So I'm sorry, I missed out the question of what exactly the question was.
Yeah, it is how different it is from front end development, or
So
yeah,
front-end
does it
development is
involve?
entirely different, right? You use HTML5, CSS nowadays, Angular JS to code most of the product that you see online, like housing, or I think Progate is made on React JS. You need to
Yep.
know front-end technologies to create UI to develop a UI. But when it comes to designing, I have not coded a single line for past 3 years, right? So just to make
No.
it clear for everyone, I am a IT graduate, IT engineering graduate. I know how to code, but I do not need to, because design doesn't necessarily need for you to code. It needs for you to understand what coding is. It needs for you to understand how coding works. Because if you design something that can't be coded, it's not gonna work. So that is the reason designers need to learn about coding. But when it comes to like direct comparison, it's a completely different activity.
Right. So, as I think it's similar to what we have seen so far, is that you need fundamentals are pretty important almost everywhere. So,
True.
you need to know the fundamentals of coding, yeah, to know that even when you are trying to get into the designer mindset. And
Exactly, and
uh,
not just coding for that matter, even networking and all other subjects that study in engineering, for instance, all of these subjects actually holistically create the knowledge that I have today to understand if the product will work or not. Even if I study economics, it helps me as a designer because I know if people will actually buy products on on this website or not, right? So all knowledge from all the streams actually help designers a lot. And that's the reason I recommend designers to take projects from wide variety of niches. So I've done crypto, I've done movies, I've done SaaS products, I've done dashboards, I've done a myriad of products in all different niches so that I can understand more about all those different niches.
that's pretty interesting. That you need to know, you need to keep your mind open. You need to learn from all the ways you can, so that you have. And I can totally understand when you are a UX, you're responsible for UX. That doesn't mean that you are only responsible for certain kind of people. You're responsible for everyone who will be using that product
True.
and how that journey will be going. So you need to put yourself in their shoes, and those kind of, I think, if all the beginners, when they are doing some sort of product development, definitely it won't be like MX Player or Progate from the day one. But
True.
even if it's like a very beginner level project, if you start thinking from the user's perspective, because a lot of times what happens, we devs, we have this kind of
The hello
mentality
world
that, okay,
mentality. We make anything.
right, like if it works for me, it looks good for me, then it looks, it is good for everyone. But that is not,
True.
I think, how it works, right? So that, I think, many people can learn from that. Yeah. So what would you? So there is some questions, I think, we have from C through, like, that's the username. I don't know the exact name, but yeah, how to get into UI UX from graphic design. So how like graphic design and UI UX, these, I think, they might be confusing with these.
Right. So if you are coming from a graphic design background, most of the time I recommend graphic designers to first try UI than UX, because UI is much closer to their prowess, much closer to what they are already good at. I, on the other hand, am a user experience designer who is not good at graphic design. So I cannot make things look pretty. If you give me a poster, I might make a decent one, but definitely not the level of a graphic designer from Nike, right, or graphic designer from Apple. That's a different level altogether. So, but if you're a graphic designer, what comes easy to you is aesthetics. What comes easy to you is the use of tools that you do, Photoshop, Illustrator, etc. So, and this is exactly what you need if you're designing UI, especially that might give you the necessary support needed for creating your UI. Then all you need to do is just basically work on your tools, know aesthetics, and make sure that it distincts, it stands out at the same time it serves the user. So if you are into graphic design, the UI would be a more what do you say, more natural step up for you. And if you are still if you still want to explore with UX, you can do that while you are doing UI. But I feel that if you are moving directly from graphic to UX, you are missing out on the fact that you are good at aesthetics, you are good at making things look pretty, which UX designers are not. UX designers are psychologists, they are PhD in psychology, they are PhD in human computer interaction. They're different kind of people. They are focused on research. UI is focused on making things more usable, pretty, and aesthetic.
That's great. Bhavishya, yeah. So next question we have from Suryajit is, what are the best apps or what tools do you recommend for beginners to get started with UI UX, or to get their hands on UI UX?
So Adobe XD is a free tool by Adobe that almost everyone nowadays use for their UI UX project, because it comes very close to what Sketch is, and I had been using for past 2 years of my career. Initially, I started with Illustrator, but later when the XD launched and it matured into a good product, I moved to Adobe XD, and because it's free, it becomes one of the best starting point for people who want to just dip their toes in, who want to try UI UX, who want to try creating designs. But people who are serious, or people who do have access to money, Sketch it would be my preference, or Adobe Creative Cloud. I have licenses for both. Most people actually choose either one of those, but I personally prefer all of my graphic design work, all of my aesthetic work to be done on Adobe Creative Cloud, and all the product design, UI UX, everything wireframing done on Sketch and Zeppelin. So these are the two major ecosystems that designers use. You can choose whichever one you want. Sketch, I think, is around $99 per year, or $120 per year or so, and Adobe is in Indian rupees, it's around 3,500, 4,000 rupees per month. So it really depends on your budget and what you're willing to spend. But Adobe XD would be a more natural start because it's free.
I hope that helps. And yeah, we do have a great design team in our Japan headquarters, and many of the learners on Progate, you might have noticed that everything which you're seeing, it has been given a very deep thought, and that has went to multiple iterations. Even before the development starts, the UX and the UI process starts like very at early stages, and that's a pretty important, and that's a great career option if you would like to use your creative skills. Talking about
I
that,
agree.
Bhavish,
Progate is one of the best examples of how good design, how good UI and UX could be together. So on Progate, you would see it's extremely beautiful, very aesthetic. At the same time, it's very usable. You find things where you expect them to. So yeah, Progate is one of the best examples of design. Great work from the design team.
Thank you, thank you. I'm sure they would love to hear that. And yeah, talking about skills, anything specific? So we know you mentioned that some coding fundamentals, some, because you need to know, like, can it be coded? You need to build that design. So what skills do you recommend that everyone should learn, have at least in their skill set, even though they are planning to be a full-time UI UX designer in the future, what technical skills they should possess?
So technically, we'll diverse it into UI and UX. For UI, technically, you need to know how to. You need to know color psychology. You need to know the trends that people are using currently for UI, for user interfaces. You need to know what's working currently. You need to know what are the guidelines of Apple. You need to know what are the guidelines of Android. If someone downloads an app from App Store from iOS, they expect it to look like from the Apple's world. They don't expect it to look like Android. And this is the small things that designers take care of, especially the UI designers. So if you are a UI designer, you need to be updated with all these frameworks, all these color psychology, all of these resources that are available for you outside in terms of UI. You can just type UI inspirations, UI resources, and you'd find ample of things for you to brainstorm from. So that is the main thing in UI. Majorly, that's the only skill you need. You need to be able to find, you need to be able to say that, yeah, this is an interface that has probably not been ever tried, or if we try it, it's going to create an amazing experience for the user. So that's all it needs. And in terms of UI UX, in terms of user experience, what you need is some knowledge of data-driven design. So you need to be able to read data, be it from Google Analytics or be it the raw data taken via Python from your database. Right? You need to be able to read that data. You need to be able to make sense out of it. That's one of the major things that UX designers do. They look for data, qualitative and quantitative. So in terms of qualitative, you need to be really good at research. So you need to have people skills. You need to have listening skills. You need to have empathy for creating products for users that actually fit in their life, that enhances their life, right? So we covered for UX, you need to know about how to read data. You need to know about psychology. You need to know about human mind, human cognition, the human cognition biases, right? Because our brain works in a very peculiar manner. When we see all these drawings of negative spaces where we imagine things where it does not exist, these are all the tricks that our brain plays with us, right? It makes us see what we don't. And this is one of the example of cognitive biases. And there are many such biases that UX designers, especially the good ones, use it into their design to make sure that it enhances the user experience. At the same time, the business goals are met as well. A lot of people do use malpractices. They overuse the cognitive biases. They make people click on things that they don't intend to. But that's where we draw the line, the ethical ones.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of insights there. And I'm sure many of the learners would like to rewind that and like catch all your advices again. Just a reminder, in case you have any question, you can ask Bhavishya. He has a lot of experience, years of experience in UI UX. And if you have any questions around that, feel free to drop them. So yeah, Bhavish, talking about again UI UX in the startup ecosystem. So what have been your like views so far, or what experiences so far, and what would be, because is it different UI UX in startups versus UI UX in big companies? Because you have worked in different with
True.
different set of companies. So yeah.
So there's a huge difference, I would say, when it comes to working with startups. It's almost always the design team of one. So you are the graphic designer, you are the UI, you are the UX, right? Everything. But when it comes to the bigger companies, you get the luxury of working on specific things. So I'll start with startups. One of the major things that if you want to start working for startups is as I said, you need to be able to take a project from the idea stage to the final product or the wireframing stage. You need to be able to churn out final designs by just an idea. And if you have that ability, you're good to go for startups. because when it comes to startup, they expect you to do everything. They would come up to you and give you an idea. For example, Progate, let's say Progate was a small startup, right? They would come to their designer and say that we need to be able to check the marks of students for all the question answers that they have between the videos, right? We need to be able to evaluate their results, right? How would that experience look like? So you need to be able to just take that pitch and create a product around it. And that is the main skill that you need. That is the main skill, I think, according to me, that you need there for
Right, right.
startups. And when it comes to bigger companies, like let's say when I'm working with MX, I have the luxury that we have a team of UI designers, we have the team of graphic designers, and in that case, what I do is I get to work on the research part. I get to dive a lot deeper into an idea. So, as a user experience designer, my role in such a company would be to take an idea and research on it, make sure it's viable, make sure you pivot it in a form that makes it more viable, and then present it to UI designers and other stakeholders in a way that makes sense to them. And that is entirely the job of user experience designer. At the same, obviously, they are doing all of this by validating it with the users through qualitative and quantitative measures. But this is what majorly they do. The user experience designers don't have to go in, even probably to sketch a lot of times and design it. Like I create low fidelity wireframes. My wireframes don't need to be pixel perfect when I am, let's say, in MX. But when I was in a startup, when I was in CoinDCX, I was one of the only two designers. I was the head of design, and I had to be pixel perfect because my designs were going directly to developers. So that is why if you're working for a startup, you should be able to handle the project end to end. But on the other hand, it's fine if you're working for a bigger company. You might be just extremely good at just one thing.
Surely. Yeah. So next comes, what do you think? What is the scope of designing and in India and beyond? What do you think where this industry is leading?
Design has a huge scope, right? Because designers are the magician, according to me, magicians of future. Designers are literally the people the CEOs come to, and they basically ask them to make them more money. And this is the kind of magician designers are. Every change a designer makes could lead to a multi-million dollar revenue lift or revenue decline in terms of the overall product. So this is how important design are, and all the CEOs, all the big startups out there, all the companies are realizing that important. They are realizing that they need such people to design products, to envision product from end to end, and to be able to be the lawyers, to be able to be the advocates of users in the company. Because when you look at the IT framework of 1990s and 2005s, you would notice that it was entirely coder focused. It was entirely focused on just ship it out, just make it out, just see what people react. That was a good, that was probably a good thing back then. But now when you're creating products, you need to be able to see it across. You need to be able to compete with a million other competitors in the market already existing. So you need to be that good. And designers actually help you be that good. And that's the reason design is only going to increase in scope now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so Bhavishya, it's been like almost 30 minutes. We have been discussing UI UX.
Right.
Shifting the gears a little bit, what would be your pieces of advice for someone who hasn't, so not talking about UI UX in general, who hasn't figured out what to do yet? Like, so there was a question from a first year engineering student who are trying to figure out their path. What would be your pieces of advice for them?
So it might seem silly, but I advise this to a lot of students that come to me, and that has been successful for me. And I do an activity that helped me figure out my passion. I used to do it more often when I was in college, and that activity is basically a form of meditation where you close your eyes, and you imagine your whole past, and you imagine the things people applauded you for, or the times that you felt most happy, right? That has been talked about by a lot of authors as a flow state. right? Which is the moment when you achieved your flow state, right? Which is the moment, which was the day when people applauded you for something, right? When you go back to those memories and you start noting down, every time you do that meditation, you find something new about your past, something new that you used to do or used to like, and when you write it down and start making sense of things on one paper, when you start noting down, okay, so for me it was, I used to be really good at drawing. I used to paint a lot. So that was the first signal for me. I used to love designing new things, editing photos, just creating new things endlessly. I used to sit on my computer and edit photos for hours, 18 hours, 19 hours, and not be tired, right? So this is another indication that this might be your passion. And another way is, obviously, if people applauded for it. A lot of people came to me and they did say that my creative sense is good. My overall way of coming up with a solution, coming up with an innovative solution was probably on an above average level. And I recognized that, and I found that, and when you write it all down on a paper and try to make sense of it, you do come up with 3 to 4 career options. So for me, the career options that came were a journalist and a designer, right? So I was not going to go to journalist because I'm an introvert. I don't like going out too much. So I completely ruled that out, and design came to me. So this is
Yeah.
activity that you could do for yourself. Dig deep into your past. I'm sure you'll find clues to things and that you're good at, passionate about, and you will tie it together into something that the people need right now, or the world needs right now. In other words, people will pay you for that.
Surely, that's a great piece of advice, and for everyone who are trying to figure out their way. One more thing is how to turn one's passion or talents into career. So when you think about your journey, when you shifted, like when you found your that yeah, this is what I want to do, and then you built you turned it into a career. So what would be your, I would say, like checklist for someone how to
So
turn your
for me,
talents
it
into a
was
career?
just one thing. It was just one thing, the burning desire, according to, I know it sounds cliche, but for me, the whole idea of losing, or whole idea of not winning, was so bad, or something that I just couldn't imagine. For me, all I needed was to become the world's best business designer in the world, and that still exists. I still wake up at 6 a.m. I still work as hard as I used to in my college. And I do that because at the bottom of it, I have that burning desire to achieve something that I set my eyes on, I feel most close to. So most people I've seen, they get demotivated because they're either chilling, they are not entirely sure about why they want to pursue that career. They don't need to. They have all the comforts in their life. Unfortunately, I didn't come from a very well off family, and for me to work hard and to achieve something was not just a luxury; it was a necessity, right? And that actually led me to work that hard. I personally don't think that I had to work that hard. I actually worked hard for a lot of things that I think that if I didn't do it, would have been fine. For example, I pursued coding, cloud computing. I did all the certifications. I might as well would not have done all of that and just did design. But that's how the life works, right? You need to be obsessed about what you want in life and what you have made your goal. If that doesn't come from inside, create something. And it's fine if you change it every year. I understand people say life goals and shit. I do not agree with it. You can change your goals every 2 years, every 1 year. That's fine, but set one.
Surely, yeah. So thank you, Bhavish, for sharing all that experience and advice for with all the learners who are trying to make their way. And by the way, we are in middle of a situation here, and a lot of students are making the most out of this their time at home by learning new skills.
Right.
So there is, I would like to encourage everyone who is watching and who will be watching in the recording afterwards, you can take a challenge called 21 Days of Code. The link is in the bio of our Instagram page of Progate. You can learn. You can kind of convince yourself to learn at least 21 minutes, just 21 minutes for 21 days, and that can help you to make coding or anything can become a habit if you do it continuously for 21 days. So surely, Bhavish, what would be like, what have you been learning lately, and what next you plan to learn? I think
So
that
for
that would
me,
be.
something that I have set my eyes on and I haven't gotten time for is AR or VR design. AR and VR design is definitely going to explode in next 3 to 4 years. Things, experiences are won't exist only on screens anymore, right? Experiences will come out of your phone within your life. And I feel that very soon I'll need to learn AR or VR designing, because I feel that 15 years or 16, 17, 18 years down the line, AR or VR would prevail the screen-based design that we see today. And that could very well happen if we see 10 years earlier, things were completely different. And I feel things are moving very fast towards the AR and VR world. And designers need to be able to get their concepts right, get their core concepts right. Otherwise, if they are running behind aesthetics, if they are running behind beautification, they will fail in the dawn of AR and VR, because it will need a lot more data points and a lot more work to create products that live with the humans, right? Not just in the phone, not in the screen, but they live with the humans. So, and obviously it needs a very expensive computer rig to design AR and VR, and that's the reason I couldn't try it yet. So that's something I am looking forward to learning more. And psychology has been my all-time favorite subject. I constantly keep reading on that. You keep forgetting because there's so much of it. But if you are a user experience designer, you need to know everything about human brain, everything about how human brain functions and work. Very important.
Yeah. And talking about that, what would be your, like, what so how do you plan, how do you set some time aside for learning? What are your best, like, what are your suggestions? How can someone keep themselves motivated to learn, keep learning new skills?
So, I mean, it really differs from person to person. For me, it's very early in the morning or late at the night. When it's entirely quiet, I feel most peace at that time. I do most of my learning, most of my projects that I start are during that time. And you need to be able to find one comfort zone, one comfort time slot within your whole 24-hour cycle, and assign that 2 hours. Now, I need to be clear that it should be at least 2 hours, right? If you are serious about something, if you're serious about acquiring knowledge, it can't be just surfacing through the news, reading the headlines. It can't be that. You need a proper 2 hour schedule to be able to dig deep, to be able to explore further into a topic that you want to. So I personally keep 2 hours separate, like 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at the night. I do a lot of brain trainings as well on apps like Elevate, that I personally find a good way to wake up. It wakes me up with quite a jolt. It wakes me up with my mind running. And you can find your ways to keep your mind running. For me, the music therapy has been extremely good. For me, every time I don't feel like working, every time I feel demotivated, I have certain songs, certain playlists that I play, and I'm instantly charged. I'm instantly ready to go. So you need to find those few things within your lifestyle that could motivate you to do. And at the end, it's all about how badly you want it. If you don't, you'll
Yeah.
sleep.
Surely, surely. Yeah. So, Bhavish, thank you so much for this discussion. It was very fun. It was very knowledgeable for everyone, and I'm sure we would love to have you back for rest of the folks who could not join today. Yeah. So, thank you so much for
Thanks a lot,
joining,
Yash. Thanks a
and
lot. Means a lot.
how they can connect in case they have any questions or any
So
any
they
suggestions
can
they would
DM
like
me
to ask, how they
on
can.
my ID Bhavishya Garg 1, or they can find my contact details at bhavishygarg.com. There's a contact form there. You can fill in your queries, and I will get back to you via mail.
Thank you. So thank you everyone who joined, and keep learning, keep coding, make the most out of your time. This is whatever you wanted to learn, this is the time. So
And
make
take the 21 challenge. I mean, don't be procrastinators, man. I mean, these guys have put together so many resources out there for you. Just take that 21-day challenge. You have another 2 weeks to go in the quarantine if you're in India. Just take that 21 challenge up and go for Out of Code.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhavish, and we would
Bye.
yeah. Thank you.